Sonic the Hedgehog has had a truly fascinating life as a movie franchise specifically, and following the third becoming the most successful entry yet, it's only set to become even more weirder with a full-on cinematic universe of spin-offs and all the rest of it coming, keeping Jim Carrey out of retirement as long as they can, it seems. If you asked 6 years ago when that infamous first trailer came out with Ugly Sonic whether this would spark a franchise of 4 movies and multiple spin-offs in under 10 years, it would have been hard to believe, yeah. Yet it seems that is exactly where we're heading now, and it's just baffling when looking back. The first trailer looks like a run-of-the-mill, trash, live-action animation hybrid movie for kids with absolute disregard for the wider franchise and fanbase. Its inclusion of James Marsden as the insert white guy stooge certainly didn't help this vibe and image, lending itself to unfortunate comparisons to Illumination's Hop. We've all seen the memes of both movies having the same shot in the car. We know what's going on. But of course, that wasn't the biggest issue going on here. No, it was of course the small, wide apart eyes of the Hedgehog himself. If you looked up bastardization of a character, this would be the first result. It is possibly the worst realization of a character design I've seen, and that's almost impressive considering how ugly Sonic has looked in the comics sometimes. And yet, it's the best thing that ever happened to this franchise. And also, Ugly Sonic still has a valid career over in the Chip and Dale movie, so good for him. By the way, watch that movie if you haven't already. It's on Disney+. I still have no idea how Lonely Island convinced Disney to make it. It's a crazy movie. I don't think Sonic would be this internet champion of movie franchises if this had never happened in the first place. And of course, it's not just that this trailer got out with an awful character design that upset the fan base, it's the fact that the production actually listened to the feedback and turned the whole thing around. The narrative was that at least it seemed as though they listened to the fans and responded to that. And as the years go by, I become more and more suspicious of whether this was their plan from day one. A deliberate viral disruption to boost the profile of the project, which would just be an absolute evil genius move. But also, we've not really seen that much since, so I don't know. It's what Robotnik himself would do to trick people into backing the movie, but I don't know. Whatever actually happened behind the scenes, they've certainly reaped the rewards. Even with the pandemic right in the middle of it, they managed to get a trilogy out within 5 years. The first releasing, if you remember, at the start of 2020. This franchise very much ushered in this new era of video game adaptations when all the odds were not in their favor. The journey to the massive success of a Minecraft movie began with a trailer featuring Ugly Sonic, I believe. As for Prime Sonic, not Sonic from Sonic Prime, his faithful character design did wonders for the first movie, whilst also paving the way for the rest of the animated cast in subsequent entries. We didn't ever have an ugly Tails, Knuckles, or Shadow, thankfully, unless there is some behind-the-scenes footage from Tails' first clip from the post-credits of the first movie. I don't think we have any visuals of that. I would love to see it, to be fair. Whatever. It's a franchise that's been the perfect blend of for the fans and wider family audience appeal in the form of Jim Carrey, who is the most Jim Carrey throughout this franchise than he's been in years. Some people go to these movies just for him. It's, genuinely an actual showcase of a celebrity bringing in views to a movie. I'm skeptical how strong celebrity appeal is in the modern age otherwise. But yes, there's such an overlap of appeal with these movies. They haven't been the billion-dollar slams like the Super Mario movie, but they have been increasing in box office performance with each installment. The graph just keeps going up. And collectively, the three of them have now made $1 billion combined. But yeah, just a reminder, Mario still made more with his first movie, which is crazy. Kinda makes sense to why they're now looking to expand, huh? Of course, we already know there's a fourth movie coming along. The post-credit scene did exactly the same format as the other movies of, here's the next character we haven't introduced yet. In this case, Amy Rose and Metal Sonic. Very cool, love that. I don't even know Metal Sonic from the games. Didn't play those ones. And I mean, after the MCU's recent habit of setting up a million confusing plot strands at the end of each movie, it's kind of refreshing that Sonic just goes for the same, here's the character for the next movie format. It's the simple things sometimes. That fourth movie is set for a 2027 release. Hey, it's still later than GTA 6, continuing the franchise's routine of releasing a movie every 2 and a bit years. However, it now looks like Paramount has plans for more than just a fourth movie and the Knuckles TV spin-off series they've already done. They've got to milk this property all the more for all that it is worth in this company's current shape. Indeed, if the Knuckles TV series wasn't enough for you, they've got more stuff planned. For one of the projects projects, the current rumor is a Shadow spin-off, which I'm sure the fanbase would be particularly excited to hear. Seems like the easiest possible option to run with. Would this be post-Sonic 3, or will they actually double down on his backstory and center a whole project around it? Shadow very quickly gets weird in the real Sonic games canon. In fact, it is inevitably all the animated cast who are circling the rumor mill for solo projects. Tails' voice actor, Colleen O'Shaughnessy, even said she would love to appear in a movie starring the character, suggesting that an origin for Tails would be amazing. I guess Amy Rose could be up there too, though I feel like we'd need that fourth movie first, of course. Or maybe a character not even touched upon yet, like Rouge, Silver, Fang, and Big the Cat, just as a complete separate thing to loop over later. That'd be kind of cool. Or, of course, Knuckles Season 2.
I do not make jokes. I make warriors.
Hey there, thank you for making it to the halfway mark of this video. You know what to do. Come and subscribe. Cheers.
I do not make jokes. I make warriors.
I'm not sure that's exactly a great idea. Mixed results on that one. Because that's kind of the core of my big worries about this. These spin-off projects just don't get, of course, the same kind of care as the mainstream series because they don't count as actual movies. If you treat them like the afterthought bonus content, that's how they will come out. There is a lot to enjoy from the Knuckles series, and a lot of people do have high praises, but it's notably more SpongeBob movie than Sonic movie. As much as, sure, you can love the human in that, and the demonstration of his origin story in the musical episode, great and fun. That being said, you can kind of see the alternative with if it going into the direction of SpongeBob movies, and the latest they've come out with is the Plankton movie, then maybe it's not as bad of a scenario if there's a good creative who's able to get more freedom out of presenting themselves, you know? Maybe leaving it a little hands-off allows for more creative directions that could be better than some of the core material. The other current murmurings about this is that these spin-offs will be theatrical releases. Oh. So maybe they did learn their lesson after Knuckles. Even if it had been better, having this incarnation of the Sonic characters in a TV format as it did, it feels a little bit weird. And I kind of feel like it had that Disney Plus quality of a movie that had been stretched and cut up, you know? A little bit of a Moana too. If they are changing course to make any spin-off content out of the movies, I'd say that's much more of a better direction than more Paramount Plus stuff. That being said, of course, they're gonna have to be careful. If the spin-offs aren't given the proper treatment, it could very well sour the franchise as a whole, and certainly it felt like a blip to me when I went from 1 to Knuckles and then 3. 3 worked out great, but you know, you still have the dip and Knuckles. If the MCU, the best real comparison we have, is feeling weighted down by so many movies, then the franchise full of visually similar characters is gonna need to be careful to not oversaturate its own audience like that too. Part of the current franchise's success, I think, is in part of the breaks in between each movie. Despite not actually being that big of a gap at like 2 and a bit years, it feels like a big return by the time these movies come back around. In this MCU 3 movies a year world, I think it's easy to forget that sometimes less is more. And these breaks for the Sonic movies could well be the key to their success in the first place, beyond fixing ugly Sonic. I don't necessarily want to see 1 or 2 Sonic movies every year. And that's a mistake I do not trust Paramount to make. I think it's fully in their wheelhouse to mess up something like that really badly. Look at the SpongeBob movies. Too often, too common, and the quality's not picking up on the in-betweens. Unless it was indeed deliberate, they did put out that first character design after all. It's that keep making them until we ruin it kind of mentality that I feel the company tends to have. So whilst I'm intrigued to see some official announcements about all of these different plans, and I'll certainly cover it here in this little mini entertainment news series we do, I am a little worried as well. Admittedly, this franchise was always going to be run up to a point where it isn't good or successful anymore, so it's not like that's ultimately not its destination anyway. Sonic only has so much source material, and even in the games, they're getting Are they sticking the landing right now? Debatably, yes. Have they had all sorts of flops and tangents? Are they gonna adapt Sonic 06? Oh my god. Imagine they take inspiration from the Minecraft movie, make an ironic, crappy story around the Sonic 06 plot. Cinema. Something to do when they finished milking the rest of Sonic, I'm sure. I don't know, man. A lot of pitfalls with Sonic in general, a lot of pitfalls when it's Paramount. At the very least, I think they can afford to not speedrun the whole process, you know? I think they at least have another 2 mainline movies in the tank before maybe 2 crappier looking spin-offs may very well be thrown in and make a change to all that. They've got to be careful, but at least color me intrigued on what this now Sonic cinematic universe pans out to be. And will Jim Carrey keep returning to this franchise for as long as he can, or will there be a point where he says, okay, I've had enough now, you know? At least he doesn't show up in the spin-offs. He wasn't in the Knuckles series, so maybe that's their way of, like, if they can't afford him in that moment, they put him in a spin-off. If he's front and center, it's a mainline movie. I don't know. Is he even around from now on? I don't know. Because I think as well, the Jim Carrey aspect could well pose a legitimate threat to the franchise too. Particularly if they ever try to actually recast Robotnik. You know? If you can't have Carrey back, then maybe retiring the character outright is the best play there. But even then, are people as interested in the Sonic movies without him? Maybe he's done enough to set up that foundational building blocks of attention. I don't know. Is it a matter of you then showcase all the other Sonic villains, get in a little bit of chaos, get a little bit of Infinite maybe? Introduce an entirely separate relative called Eggman instead of Robotnik, or outright just recast him as Jerry Trainer because that's the closest kind of similar vibe you can get. I don't know. I know at least that the core fan base would probably really dig going into other villains without Robotnik and having stories away from him, but for the wider audience, I do think Jim Carrey is a big part of the appeal. When you had an alternative villain in the Knuckles series, it was nice. It didn't exactly bring direct sales though, so I guess we'll just have to see where it goes on that one. At the very least, now there is a full-on Sonic cinematic universe of movies and spin-offs planned, and it's certainly gonna go in every direction all at the same time. You can probably count on that. For now though, I'll be ending things off there. My name's been Daz. Thank you very much for reaching the end of this video. Do tell me your thoughts on this franchise now. Where do you want it to go? Do you think it'll be any good? I'd love to hear your thoughts and more, and I'll see you all in a little bit. Bye bye. Is it obvious that I'm recording this in a heat wave? Because I am sweaty.